There's another keyword that we can use to set up fields in the way we want, and so this one is going to be the constant fields, and you want to set up constants for things like the width of the window that you're working with, or the degree to which gravity affects velocity, or anything that's not going to change throughout the course of your program. You want to set it up as what we call a final variable. So it's like locked in. Once you create it, it's never going to change. And basically what it is it's giving a name to a number because it's useful to understand a number's purpose. If you just read a program and you see a bunch of numbers floating around, just like 5s and 3s and 2s and 16s and 2.14, you're like, what are all these things? What is their purpose? Well, final variables are a way to give a name to a number that's not going to change. In the same way that variable names are, giving a name and like kind of communicating the purpose of a number that can change. So this is just a number that doesn't change, but we still want to give it a name, which is actually something you do fairly frequently. So you just say it's a final variable. And you can make final integers like int width if you were going to remember the width. The convention, at least as far as I know, is to do these things in all uppercase to indicate to everybody that they're final. And you can say like the final width, and you always define these variables up in the fields. You give them a value up there so that they're just kind of fixed from the beginning of the class, and you can make use of them throughout. So say the character had a width of 500 pixels or whatever, and this myObject thing did. That's great. Well, let's make a little bit more kind of something that we can use. So something like pi, 3.14159 will never change basically, or like for this purpose we'll use it in different ways. And we just want to give it a name. Even though everybody knows what 3.14159 is, let's just give it a name. So we're going to say it's a final, but a number that contains decimals, and int is just a whole number, obviously. So we're going to create a final double, so a double which will never change, and we're just going to call it pi. And we're going to say pi, for our purposes, equals 3.14159. Great, and so throughout our program, we can make use of this pi thing. If we want other classes to just have access to it immediately without having to create information, without having to create a myObject object, we can do this, and they can reference it directly. But let's just create a final double called pi, or we can create this and have it be public, whatever. Never mind. I'll get into public and private later. So how do we make use of this final double called pi? Well, we can just create a new method down here for myObject to be able to do, and we're going to say myObject, we want it to be able to calculate the say area of a circle. So this is going to be double, so it's going to send back the area of a circle. It's going to answer the question, get circle area, and it's going to be based on the radius. So we're going to say you need to send it, whoever uses this, a double called radius. And then our method is going to take, what's the formula for the area of a circle? You're going to return pi r squared, right? So pi times the radius squared, which is just the radius times the radius. And that's all we have to send back. Oops, and I named this funny because it should be 2 caps. Pi times the radius times the radius. And now all of a sudden this is readable. It would still be basically readable because this is such a common idea, 3.14159. You could type that and people would be like, oh, that's pi. But for quantities that are less understood, less widely understood, it's important to do this, maybe more so than for pi. And now we can make use of this method. We say, like, okay, let's say we have a radius of, some 20 units. So double area equals object, and we can use any of them now. So object 7 can calculate our radius. Dot get circle area, excuse me, based on, let's send it a radius of 30. What's 30 units? What's the area of a circle with Our radius 30 units. System dot out dot print line circle has an area of units. All right, and we'll run our program, and we'll see that, in fact, a circle with radius 30 units has an area of 2,827.431 units, approximately. So that's how you give names to variables that are never going to change in your program.